The 2021 summit is a collaboration between LIM College and FashionDex.com. This year's sponsors are Tex World New York City and Apparel Sourcing New York City. I would like to invite Nancy Miller to come and welcome you all. Nancy.
Thank you, Monica. I'd like to begin by introducing myself. I'm Nancy Miller. I'm the chair of fashion merchandising and marketing here at LIM College. And it's wonderful to have you all here, both near and far, on behalf of the college, where sustainability is part not only of our curriculum, but part of our core values. It is my honor to kick off the 4th annual Sustainability Summit. Today, we have assembled many thought leaders and agents of change. We have lots of speakers. We have students who are going to be a part of today. And I think you're going to learn and share and converse. So again, I'd like to thank you on behalf of LIM College and FashionDex.
We welcome you again and thank you for attending the Fashion and Sustainability Summit. And we will start with our first panel, which is a conversation with ADAY and Eileen Fisher in 3 minutes. But I want to also thank LIM College and FashionDex for this great partnership for 4 years now on this event. And also thank Tex World New York City and Apparel Sourcing New York City, our sponsors. Please look on their website and join their show in January, where LIM and FashionDex will also be, and we can say hi again in January.
This first panel is Sustainability at Eileen Fisher and ADAY. With us, we have Amy Hall from Eileen Fisher, Millie Maidens from ADAY, and Kaleigh Moore, who will be moderating us.
Yeah, this is Kaleigh Moore. So I have been writing about fashion and sustainability for about 3 years now for publications like Forbes, Vogue Business, Adweek, a few others. And I'm really excited to chat with these two really smart women today. So looking forward to getting into it.
Thanks so much. And I'm happy to be here. Sorry, we can't be there in person. I'm just going to give a very, very brief overview of how we're thinking about sustainability these days at Eileen Fisher. This circle depicts how we think about the life cycle of our product. It starts with design at the very top. Always, everything starts with design and moves through the the fiber and material sourcing, the production, the transportation, and into the customer use. All of that is our first life product. When we take back our product and resell the clothes, then we're talking about the second life, and that's in that resale little picture there. And then when we remake those pre-loved clothes into new products, we're talking about third life, and that's waste no more. We're still working on connecting the third life, the recycled or remade aspect of the life cycle, back to the top of the circle to begin the first life design again. That's kind of the little kink in the system for us, but we're getting there. Next slide, please. So here are a couple of examples of what we've been able to scale over the years. You can see on the top there, we have our self-described eco-preferred materials. By the end of this year, we'll be at about 80% of all our products can be designated eco-preferred, and that has to do with how the fiber was sourced and what kind of chemistry is used. On the bottom, you see a snapshot of our safe chemistry progress. We started that a little later than the eco-preferred materials. This process prioritizes blue sign chemistry, and you can see that we were at about 80% by the end of last year, but we have slid back a bit due to bandwidth and resource constraints. But we're still really proud of this progress, and we're continuing to work on it. Next slide. On the top of this slide, you can see that about 70% of the wool that we used in 2019 was certified responsible. And we have slid back a bit since then, again, due to bandwidth and resources. I have to say the last 2 years have not been kind to Eileen Fisher. We're still kind of clawing our way out of a very difficult period, but we're still committed. On the bottom, you can see how we've transitioned from conventional viscose to the more responsible Tencel lyocell. And this was tricky because viscose was one of our top selling fabrics. And so we had to, it was a full effort to convince our customer to come along with us, as well as, not to mention our suppliers and people inside the company. So all of these efforts require a tremendous amount of cross-departmental partnership and integration and partnership with our suppliers. Next slide. So after the last couple of really difficult years, we decided to pull together our key thinking partners and leaders across the company just last month to re-energize folks around sustainability and the values that are important to us. You can see Eileen was there. She's on the right side. You may have heard the most recent announcement. I think it was just last week that Eileen will be stepping down as CEO, but she is just fired up about sustainability still and will remain active with the company on the board. But a key learning from that day was that circularity remains very important to our business model, and refining all of our business processes for greater efficiency and impact is going to be important to our continued success. Last two slides are just quick snapshots of our Renew program, which for those who aren't aware, we have been taking back our clothes from our customers since 2009 and cleaning and reselling them in our stores and online. This is our Second Life product. And the next slide is our Eileen Fisher Waste No More product, where the clothes that are in terrible condition that we get back, we cut them up. We put them into these beautiful, fanciful designs, and we felt them into fabric and make pillows and home furnishings, handbags, etc. out of them. And this is our Third Life product. So we are trying lots of stuff, and happy to talk more about it as we get into it.
The clothing you wear matters. It's about more than style. These choices have an impact beyond your closet. Every year, the average American throws out 81 pounds of textiles. Most of these fabrics can't biodegrade. That has a very real impact on the environment. So how do you solve clothing waste? It starts by thinking differently. By wearing our clothes, you're participating in a circular system, one that cares about how clothes are made and where they end up. From the beginning, ours are designed to last. Timeless styles, quality fabrics, responsibly sourced. Instead of discarding them, we ask that you bring them back when you're done. We'll make sure they have a new life, either by reselling the pieces that can be reworn or turning the others into something entirely new. At Eileen Fisher, we imagine a future where waste is a thing of the past. One where we leave the places we touch better than we found them.
Thank you
Thanks.
so much, Amy. Next up, I would actually like Millie.
Hi, everyone. Firstly, I just want to say thank you so much for inviting me to be a part of this and to speak alongside some of the most amazing pioneers in this industry. So it's a real honor. So for those of you that don't know ADAY, our focus is to lift the standard of clothing with clothing that does more with less. So simple is the wardrobe, easy is the way. So we design minimalist wardrobes for a maximalist benefit. And the idea is that we are creating clothing that gives our wearer ease, versatility, and space to kind of do the things that they truly love day in, day out. Our clothes kind of speak for themselves, and we have shirts that kind of do 7 things. You can wear them 7 different ways. You can wash them on kind of machine wash, easy care, they're quick drying. And the idea is that you can kind of just have a minimal capsule wardrobe that is long lasting, and you can kind of add your personal style and touch. Just wanted to share a little snippet about how our clothing is made and kind of the people behind it. A lot of the suppliers we work with are family-run factories, all kind of starting off with one product and then expanding. What was really important for us is to work with suppliers that share our beliefs and share kind of our desires around transparency and sustainability. So kind of starting off relationships with our suppliers, we make sure we align on kind of our code of conducts, our innovations, and our kind of aims for the future, so to speak. Here is just some stats on where our suppliers are at and kind of where we are at as a company. So 100% of our suppliers are OEcoTex, Blue Sign, or ZDHC certified, which kind of in short, all of those certifications just encompass ensuring that there's no harmful chemicals made in kind of the production of our products and our fabrics. 100% of our mills have energy efficient machinery. So ensuring that none of the machines are kind of old and using more machinery than needed. All of these are kind of also monitored as well. They're very small kind of insights into what we look for and ask for from our suppliers, but for us really it is a learning curve. We strive to do better every day and iterate on that every day. Amazing. So I just wanted to share a little bit more about our fabrics because kind of that's where I come at our part in the business. So usually we start with our fabrics when we design, and we focus on kind of a core range of fabrics that to us truly do everything we need, that are versatile, wrinkle resistant, some are UV protective, most of them have stretch, so they're kind of easy to use, easy to wear, they're very flexible. And our aim has obviously been to replace these kind of virgin fibers with their better, more sustainable options. So just sharing a little snippet from where we are with our styles. So this year we are on track to hit 87% of our styles being made from recycled, regenerative, so that's including like cellulosic fibers and natural fabrics. So that's a really exciting milestone. You can kind of see how we've like moved up through the years. The reason kind of 2018 is only 45% is just kind of how the market has come on, but also because we are very focused on technical fabrics, a lot of those fabrics have typically been synthetics. So the polyester, the polyamide, but over the years, we've been investing in kind of working with different fiber suppliers that are using kind of recycled or regenerative fibers. So we've definitely got more to come, and I'm sure I'll share more as we talk.
Thank you so much, Millie. At this point, I'm going to turn this over to Kaleigh Moore.
Great. So I know that you both have touched kind of on my first question already, which is how are you working to slow down fashion at each of your brands? But are there other efforts you're making or things maybe you haven't touched on, things that are future facing that you're excited about at both of your companies? Let's start with Amy.
Well, there's one thing that's happening that was unintentional, which is I've already mentioned we had a really tough couple of years. We are quite a bit smaller now as a company than we were 2 years ago or even a year ago. And there's no intention to grow the company back to its original size, which means our inventory is quite a bit smaller and our production volume is quite a bit smaller. And we've kind of, the internal conversation is all about, how do we really need to, maybe we got a little too big and maybe we didn't need to be as big and maybe we didn't need to make as much stuff as we were making. You can only sell as much clothing as people want or need. And anyway, so that's kind of an unintended result of a really tough time, but we're kind of happy with that and settled with it. And that just means that we're scaling back in many ways and deciding that producing less isn't a bad thing.
Millie, what about you?
So obviously I shared a little bit about kind of how versatile our designs are and how they can kind of be worn in multiple ways. But another approach we take is data-driven design and problem solving. And that involves looping our customers in very early on to our design stage, and kind of asking them questions such as, what problems do you want us to solve? And really kind of pushing them to get the answers so we can make sure that we're creating clothing that absolutely fulfills a need and that is like essential to our customers. And that's very important to us. And that usually happens at kind of the first stage of design. And then obviously when we decide what pieces of clothing will go into production. And I think as Amy touched on as well, that was a huge part for us during the kind of last couple of years, where we had to kind of really reapproach our way, kind of how we looked at designing and what styles our customers wanted. I mean, for an example, we last February, we launched actually a suiting collection. It was incredibly successful in the first kind of week. We then all headed into lockdown and no one needed suiting anymore. And for us, it was a real blow. We'd been working on it for 6 months, and suddenly our customers were just desiring loungewear, tracksuits, sweatshirts. Luckily, we had some of these pieces, but it wasn't kind of in our trajectory for the rest of the year. We really had to pivot. We had to take on kind of a couple of like different fabric inventory positions, to kind of say, we love this fabric, but it's not going to work for this year. We are able to design into it next year, hopefully when everything improves. And we really doubled down on kind of our more loungewear pieces, to make sure we really fulfilled that need of our customers.
That dovetails nicely into my next question, which is around supply chains. And I know that this is such a hot topic right now with everything that's going on logistically and, the holiday season coming up. So let's talk about how you work towards transparency within your supply chains. Amy, do you want to go first?
I get the hot seat. We this is a very interesting and timely question because we did have a dedicated transparency team of 2 up until about a year ago. And when the company was shrinking, both just through natural attrition and through some layoffs that we had to have, we lost our transparency team. And among many other roles that were really, it was just heartbreaking. And we are committed to figuring out a way to keep it going, but we have lost some of that, which is why you saw some of the numbers on my slides decreasing. So for us, transparency starts with at the farm level. That's how we were able to migrate so much of our wool to responsible and regenerative. I didn't even talk about that, but because you have to have those conversations, you have to be on the farm to find out exactly what they're doing. And it's not enough to collect the certificates and to just to ascertain the origins of what you're producing. That's fine, and that's a great start. But in order to really understand, you have to have those relationships. We are experimenting for spring 2022 with some blockchain technology, to see how much can we achieve with that. I'm a little bit on the skeptical side because I think you can only do so much. Yes, you can get all certificates. That saves a whole lot of time and effort, but there's a lot that isn't told through certificates, including and in particular labor conditions. And with the Uyghur forced labor situation being very hot right now, among many other things, you just need other methods. So there's nothing at this point replaces having real people on the ground to do that. And so we're scrambling to figure out how we can keep that alive, given the bandwidth that we have now. Sorry for such a long answer.
No, that was a great answer. And I think it's important to see the complexities of that kind of question. It's not easy. And it's definitely just one of many challenges that the past couple of years have brought up for brands like Eileen Fisher and many others. So What about ADAY? How do you approach transparency within the supply chain? I know you touched on that a little bit in the opening, but I'd love to hear more.
Yeah, well, I love what Amy, you said about kind of the importance of the relationship. And for us, really, that was quite groundbreaking in knowing kind of what suppliers to work with. We kind of have, it's very important for us to meet our suppliers either in person or kind of over video call, which we had to do obviously during COVID. But we do kind of in-person visits to all of our suppliers before working with them, and kind of proper audits that kind of obviously come through certifications, but also just naturally from us speaking to the employees while we're during our visits, and kind of building that rapport. We also found kind of the benefits of, you know, being a small company as well. We were able to kind of really harbor those relationships. And sometimes when you're a small company, you don't get as prioritized as you do the bigger companies in terms of production, but actually knowing your account managers well, knowing the people you work with. And I think it really, really goes a long way. So that's obviously a huge part. I think we are also in the process of applying to be a B Corporation, which is really exciting. It's huge. It's such a big challenge. We, again, as Amy said, we lost a couple of people over COVID, and kind of really had to double down on the resources to create this B Corp. But basically B Corp covers kind of the 3 pillars, people, planet, and profit. And it's actually a very invasive certification, and really encourages you to kind of get the real details of your suppliers. And that actually was another thing for us, really figuring out who our suppliers again and which ones weren't, because you have to ask kind of, you know, the GHD, like things for 2019, 2020, 2021, and have that month on month. What is the energy they're using? What are the outputs? What are the inputs? And that's only the sustainability side. And there's probably about 50 questions that go through all of that. So for us, I think that's going to be huge with communicating our customers about our transparency as well.
So let's talk then about a little bit about preferred materials. Since we've talked about the supply chain, we've talked about some of the challenges that it's been presenting for the past couple of years. How do you approach preferred materials, and what are they? I know, let's start with Millie, because I know you touched on that a little bit, but talk to me about how you go about choosing materials and what you look for, and what's ideal and what's not.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. So longevity is our kind of starting point. So fabrics that really can stand the test of time. Our pieces are investment pieces. They're very high quality. We want our customers to have them in their wardrobes for years. So obviously wear testing is very big. So we kind of look at fabrics that are very close knit. So jerseys that have durability tests, stretch tests. And that is one of the reasons at the beginning we kind of really looked to the activewear market for our fabrics, because they were kind of so like heavy and durable, and were really tested for like the extreme sports. So that was our starting point. So that is why kind of in the beginning we did have those more technical fabrics. And our challenge kind of now, especially as we've moved into the B Corp, is ensuring that our fabrics are kind of more biodegradable, can have better circularity, and elastane plays a huge part in that. So one challenge we've set ourselves kind of over the last couple of years is ensuring that there is 10% or less elastane in our fabrics, which enables the fabric after life to be recycled again. The elastic is kind of like it basically destroys the rest of the fibers because it's like a bit of a dominating fiber. So that was a huge lesson for us when we were focusing on leggings and everything. So we've really been researching into kind of mechanical stretch or other fabrics or fabric constructions that can give us that stretch that we didn't have before. So that's a small part, but
Yeah, that's great. What about at Eileen Fisher?
Well, I love what you just shared, Millie. I really resonate with your approach. And so since I'm not on the design team, nor do I source fabrics, I can just talk about kind of generally what I know and see happening. First of all, we use, anybody who knows our brand knows that we repeat styles and fabrics. People come to us because they love our fabrics. So that is something that is kind of a hallmark of our brand. We will, stick with one for as long as we possibly can, if the customer loves it. And that viscose example that I gave was a tricky one because customers loved it, and it's terrible for the environment. And so as we were transitioning to Tencel lyocell, it doesn't perform the same. It doesn't feel the same. Hand feel is really important. So we had to create different designs, whole different silhouettes and shapes and products to ultimately phase out the viscose things and introduce some version of, slightly different take on the style. So the customers didn't quite always see the difference. Anyway, so yeah, we're looking at the origin. Is it organic? Is it recycled? Is it responsibly sourced? The certified responsible wool. Is it regeneratively sourced? So the farm level is really important. What kind of chemistry goes into it? We also prioritize blue sign, just like ADAY. I've never heard of you before, but now I'm your biggest fan, but I can't pronounce the company. I'm sorry. Is it ADAY?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. I know you said it.
We say it either way,
Okay.
ADAY or ADAY. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry. I'm really sorry about that,
right.
but I'm really going to follow you guys. Chemistry, and we do wear test also, but some of our fabrics are quite delicate, especially the sweater knits, and sometimes it's really tough to get the delicate look and feel and have the durability together. So that's something that we still are concerned about and looking at. I don't know that I have another answer. It's kind of repetitive.
No, that was great. That was great. It's so interesting to see behind the curtain a little bit. And speaking of fabrics, we do have a audience question related to fabrics. So I want to pause and address that. It's from Emmy Miller. So the question is about coconut hull, banana leaf, bamboo fabrics. Do we have feedback on how well these fabrications hold up to dry cleaning, washing, durability, and in which categories? So can either of you speak to that at all?
I can speak to it a little bit. So I'll start with bamboo. That is actually one fiber that we're super interested in. I think it's going to be a fiber that we use in kind of more of our plant life collections, which is our jersey styles, a bit more of like our basics. So it would kind of sit alongside our like Tencel modal collections. What is so amazing about it is it's got the natural properties that other kind of synthetic technical fabrics have. So I touched on this very briefly earlier, but we are really looking to switch out those synthetic fibers. But as Amy mentioned, quality is a huge importance when switching these fibers. You can't just do it straight away. We want to make sure that our fabrics are still as high quality, still feel the same. So it means there are like a couple of months of testing and kind of moving through the process there. But bamboo is a really, really great fabric. I would say previously there has been some concerns about the way it is produced. So I would look to certified suppliers and looking into kind of suppliers that promote circularity within the use of chemicals. This is something obviously Lenzing does. Lenzing doesn't do bamboo at the moment, but that's a good example. So it's all a closed loop process. Because with some of these cellulosic fibers, they need a lot of chemicals to kind of create the fiber. And then banana leaf, sorry, do stop me if I'm going on, but
No, keep going.
So banana leaf, we have trialed that fabric. I believe it is, I can't remember the company's name, but it will come to me. We were going to use that as like an alt leather situation. We didn't hugely go through the testing, but for us, the fabric didn't feel as advanced because it still felt very much like it was in its natural form. And for us, sustainability really is the baseline, but it's not the aesthetic. And we just felt that this fabric kind of really promoted its aesthetic, even though it was so beautiful, it just didn't fit into kind of our design philosophy, so to speak. But they are fantastic fabrics, and there are loads on the market at the moment, like orange fiber, which is like a silk fiber made out of orange peel. There's also kind of vegan leather made out of grape waste, which is also really exciting. So there's so many things that are in trial at the moment that we'd love to get our hands on as well, but definitely look into it a bit more.
And we don't use anything like that at Eileen Fisher, but I just on a personal level, I recently ran across cactus leather made by a company called Deserto. I think I don't know how to pronounce it. And I was completely floored by it because, you know, if you like vegan leather, a lot of vegan leather doesn't really feel so much like real leather. It's also terrible for the environment. A lot of it is. But I felt like this leather, the Deserto cactus leather, was so soft and, you know, buttery. And I don't know much about how it's processed, but I just think that there's some really exciting stuff happening out there. I don't know about answering the question about how to care for it and dry cleaning and all of that. So
yeah, that's a fairly technical question. So maybe we aren't the right folks to answer that, but that's okay. I feel like we've touched on it and we've shared what we can. So that's good. I'm going to move on to my next question, which is about working towards circularity and the challenges that come with it. So this has been a really, really difficult past couple of years across the board, across verticals. Sustainability, I think for a lot of brands has been on the chopping block because a lot of brands went into survival mode. And so I want to talk about what are the challenges of continuing to focus on circularity and how are you working to overcome those? So let's start with Amy this time.
Yes. Well, as I mentioned during my introductory comments, circularity remains very important to us. You know, although many people are aware of our Renew and Waste No More efforts, they still remain very small compared to the whole size of our, you know, first life production. And what we are now talking about is how to really integrate them into the main part of the company. And as I mentioned, you know, like closing the loop. So relating them back into first life design. So there are a few ways of doing that. One is, what can we learn from the clothes that we're getting back? Whether it's we're getting a lot of one kind of thing or one kind of fabric, et cetera, what can we learn from that can then inform our first life design process to improve those fabrics or the designs? What can we learn from a disassembly perspective? So as we're cutting things up, you know, we're removing the seams and we're making little strips and stuff to make into the felted fabric. What can we learn on the product development side that would inform the product development side? And then to the bigger question of how can we take the product and that's no longer wearable and actually upcycle it into new fiber that we can then use in our first life product. That's the part that we haven't done so much of yet. We're dabbling in it here and there. But I think what's going to happen, my prediction is over the next couple of years, we're definitely going to be much more deeply integrating circularity into the whole of the picture and seeing it grow in terms of overall volume as it relates to the whole of our product manufacturing and sales. Separately, I'll just name something else that's happening. So I sit in two places in the company. On the company side, I'm in the social consciousness team, and I'm also helping with the Eileen Fisher Foundation, which is Eileen's private foundation. It's separate from the company. And in that place, we are conducting a long-term research project with an external partner, and with the goal to identify brand partners that might want to collaborate on, this elastane thing that Millie mentioned is quite alive for us as well. How do we upcycle fabric that has either too much elastane in it and or multiple blends, and including some synthetic? There's really nobody tackling that right now. And so we're thinking that could be the place that we fill, the little niche that we fill. So just a little advertisement, if anyone's interested in talking to me about that, I'm happy to talk and listen.
I love that. Millie, how about you?
Amy, I would love to pick your brain more on all of that as well. This is, like, in all honesty, this has been a huge challenge for us. We absolutely design with circularity in mind. So that is kind of with the choice of only using one fabric within a piece of clothing, or kind of 2 is probably our maximum, which would include a lining, which then helps kind of promote the ease of recycling if you only have one fabric. And then also the reduction of trims that can't biodegrade. So only using the very necessary trims that can kind of be easily removed at the recycling process. We have looked deeply into kind of how to recycle our fabrics as well. And I obviously touched on our 10% elastane, and that is actually our scuba fabric that we create with a Taiwanese mill. And we have been working with Unify and Reprieve, who is the yarn supplier, on how we can recycle that fabric, and they actually have a program. The only thing is, because we promote the longevity of our clothes and we hope customers have it in their wardrobes, we don't get a lot of the clothes back yet. So we have a scheme where you can obviously send your old ADAY back to us, but there is huge quantities you need to kind of start up these recycling machines as well. So we have not yet got to that process. I know companies like Patagonia do that amazingly with a number of kind of their outerwear jackets, and is absolutely kind of our North Star and our aim to get that. But at the moment, it's a lot of kind of research into our suppliers. Are they focusing also on circularity? Lensing, I mentioned earlier, is a huge one that focuses on the closed loop production process. So all chemicals used in the production cycle are kind of reused. And then another part of that is with our dyeing mills. Do they reuse the water when they dye? So they use kind of the water to dye the lighter colors at the beginning of the week, and then they keep that water to dye the darker colors, which is a really fun insight that we found during our factory visits. But just small initiatives like that, we really find that they all really add up to an investment into circularity.
We had a question from Emily Wallace, who says, we are looking into using conventional cotton to launch our product line that's grown in Texas. Do you think that there are any environmental / social / economic benefits of this cotton as compared to conventional cotton grown overseas? So whoever would like to chime in on that.
I'm not a big fan of conventional cotton. I'll just say that right now. But I will say one thing, which is, given that, because we're in the middle of all of this, this issue in Xinjiang, China, with the Uyghur, potential Uyghur forced labor, largely related to the cotton farming, organic cotton farming in Western China. Of course, you won't have that problem if you source your cotton from Texas or anywhere in this country. So that's, on a labor side, one huge advantage. However, conventional cotton is very harmful to the workers, the farm workers' health, and their lung health, their skin health, and not to mention the environmental health. So I would urge you to consider supporting a transitional process for that farm or any farm that you're working with, so that they can eventually work their way towards organic farming processes, because it will just be so much more beneficial. Also uses less water. There's just so many more benefits to organic.
Millie, anything to add?
I'm absolutely in the same mind. We've actually just introduced a cotton recently, but it's under kind of the BCI initiative, which does focus on kind of the training of the farmers to improve their practices on kind of water management, waste management, soil health, and of course the fibers they use. It was really important for us to kind of work with suppliers that invested in that and also invested in their local communities, because as Amy touched on, there can be a lot of harmful chemicals used and it can harm the workers' health. So I would also kind of ask the organization that you work with whether you can kind of visit them firsthand and kind of meet them and see the conditions, or see if you can kind of work with something like the BCI, or even recycled cotton or organic cotton.
We have another question from Ava Vaughn. Ava says, what are your primary resources in terms of education and implementation of textile and material innovation, specifically related to sustainability? So where do you go to get information?
Textile Exchange. That's the one that comes to mind for me. I'll start there. Maybe we'll build on each other. Millie, you go.
So there is Good On You, which is a rating site for brands, but also kind of educates you on the fabrics and everything. There's also Fashion for Good, who have a museum in Amsterdam that kind of focus on the fabrics and kind of their life cycle, but they also kind of work with a lot of brands to promote better practices. And that there is one as well that is based in the US called Class. I don't know whether anyone else has heard that.
CLASS?
Yes. Yeah, and they do a lot of like forums and webinars, and kind of also work with some of the bigger fiber suppliers. And then one more, the Sourcing Journal, which I believe is here today as well, is a fantastic resource.
Oh, and then on that point, Eco Textile News is also quite good. It's one of those two are my favorite public.
So my final question to kind of wrap things up here is, what are you looking forward to in terms of sustainability efforts at both of your organizations? Amy, would you like to go first?
You know, I've already talked about circularity growing in importance. I think that I'm really looking forward to that. Looking forward to, we are a HIG company. Our suppliers use the HIG. It's not perfect, but it is kind of leveling the playing field. So I'm kind of happy-ish that is, that we're that our suppliers, more and more of our suppliers are following that, are using the assessments and including the FSLM, the Facility Social Labor Module, which now is like leveling the playing field and providing us with common language around the labor standards in the factories and supply chain. I think that's really an important direction for the industry. So those are the two things in my head right now.
Ours would be becoming a B Corp. Hopefully that's a huge milestone for us. And then kind of more on maybe one of my more projects that's coming through, but our tailored stretch fabric, that is kind of one of our biggest fabrics that we use across a number of our pieces. We will be introducing a biodegradable option next year. I don't mind sharing it. I feel like my boss is gonna be like, you're just giving away the secret. But we like to share everything. And that breaks down in 5 years in landfill, which is really incredible, because I know there's lots of terms around kind of compost and biodegradability. And so I feel like this, especially for us, is going to be a really, really exciting topic to talk about.
Very exciting.
Of course, you don't want people to throw away their clothes right away, right? So that's the goal. How do we keep people wearing everything as long as possible? And then finally, when it needs to be thrown out, they can just do that and it's fine.
Right.
That's exciting.
That's really the burning question to all of this, right? Is how do we get both sides of the equation to balance each other out? On the production side and on the consumer side, there's still quite a gap. So it's definitely an ongoing challenge. To close out by just thanking both of you for coming on. I think that concludes this session. We covered so many interesting topics here, and I'm so glad that we had insights from both Millie and Amy here today. So I'm going to hand it back over
Thank you both. That was a wonderful summit. Amy, Millie, Kaleigh, I appreciate your time.